Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going without the webcam, and it's going to be another Faction War showcase and guide for our free-to-play series, more like a sub-series off of our free-to-play series we call Free Smiles. So today we're going to be covering Knights Revenant faction where we beat the entire stage, getting all 63 stars, and this is going to be a showcase guide on how I beat the final stage to get 3 stars without anybody dying, and also the gear and mastery that they're all wearing. So let's get right into it. Alright, so when it comes to the Knights Revenant faction, this is definitely, I would say, one of the hardest factions in entire Faction Wars, in my opinion. And I mean, there are some other hard ones too, like Skinwalkers, Undead, and whatnot. But it really does come down to what champions you have, what the gear that you use to gear them with, and whatnot. So starting with our Skull Crown here. Normally, I have my Skull Crown built in full damage for arena and for campaign farming, but I did have to change her out of that to go full stun set because I needed that consistent stun to land on everybody if possible, especially the Valkyrie wave. So with stun set, you're not always going to be able to land those stuns, but the more hits you get off and the more AoE you have going off, then the more likelihood you're going to land something. So if anything, if you don't land the stun on what you want to, then you could just restart the run if anything. But we do have her built with some damage. Now, she is crit capped, and I do have her going somewhat fast here. The damage is not the most impressive, but it's getting the job done for me. And for the skills, I do have her fully booked out. Now, like I mentioned before, the Skull Crown does have an AoE hit on every ability she does. And she also has a chance to survive any fatal hits, basically. She can go unkillable when her HP drops below 20%, and this is on a 4-turn cooldown when fully booked. And for the Masteries, we have her all the way down to Helm Smasher. Now, the way this Mastery is built right now, I do have her built for PvP, but I guess if I had to rework her, I would go down to the War Master or something. Now, over to the next champion, we do have the Sepulchre Sentinel. I do have her in a lot of HP. I do have her in a decent amount of accuracy. 200 accuracy is probably what you want to aim for Faction War Stage 21 and whatnot. But if you can get to that 235 mark, that would be even better to just get more consistent landing on the debuff. But she's mainly here just to provide the attack down, some protection with the increased defense, block debuffs, and also potentially her block damage that comes in from her passive. Now this is really handy whenever one of your champions are taking like a really fatal hit, then you have a chance to block that damage and you'll be safe. Over to her Masteries. We do have her built in a clan boss kind of setup, but this is just fine for the PvE aspect as well, going down to the War Master here. Now, for the Miscreated Monster, I do know that he has stun capabilities on his A1 and A2, but they're not always going to land because it is a percentage chance. So just to make sure I can have that extra way of landing those stuns, I put a stun set on him as well, just like a fail-safe. Because I didn't really see anybody else that was an ideal option, and he seemed like he would be okay to use it. But we do have him built with, I guess he's not crit capped or anything, but pretty close to it. Enough accuracy to land those stuns, and I pretty much just built him with HP and some damage here, I guess you could say. We do have him fully booked out. He's going to be providing the protection, the heals for himself, and also, like I said earlier, he has stun capabilities already built in, which is fantastic. Now over to the Masteries, we do have him going down the support tree for the Evil Eye, the Cycle of Magic, and then also, of course, the War Master for extra damage procs. Now, over to the MVP for me for this faction is going to be Walking Tomb Drain. This guy was a previous Fusion Fragment champion, and he's so good. He's got AoE HP burn on his A2, and it can't be resisted, and for his A3, he also has an equalized HP, which pretty much balances everybody's HP, makes them nice and healthy, and he also has a detonator on the A1 with a double hit. So this guy is really good for this faction. Also, a reflect 30% of damage this champion receives back to the attacker, but he's going to be, yeah, hands down the MVP for me for this faction that I used. And for the Masters here, I do have him built all the way down to the War Master. I mean, the accuracy didn't matter too much here considering he can't be resisted, right? But I do have him going down to the Evil Eye so I can reduce some turn meter, and also Cycle of Magic so I can get back. I have a chance to reset the cooldown on his abilities. We didn't really focus too much on accuracy at all because again, he can't be resisted unless it's a bad affinity, but it can't be helped there. And for the speed here, we do have 155. Yeah, all I focused on was HP, and that's pretty much it. This is basically the same drain that I used for my Spider run, my Spider really fast team. And yeah, I didn't really have to change much at all. I just left them as is. And over to the final champion, we have the Rector Drath, who is also considered an MVP of this faction, and she really is, because she's going to be providing a lot, like great support abilities. She does have the attack down on the A1 that I probably should have capitalized on more and built more accuracy on her, but I didn't do that. And for the A2, she does have heals. She also puts a veil on all allies who are topped off with full HP, and also puts continuous heals for champions that are not full HP. So really great support champion. Also, she has a revive. So revive is huge when it comes to faction wars, and those are the type of champions that are typically MVP, because she can just, whatever, anything goes wrong, that those champions can bring people back to life, and it's, you know, all is well. And over to the Masters here, I didn't really focus on this too much because I pretty much just wanted her to be healthy enough to survive the hits, and also make sure she is able to go fast enough so she can go back to wrap back around her abilities and just pick people back up from dying, basically. So that's pretty much the gist of my team. Now, if I had the option of picking from what I have available, I probably would have taken out the Sepulchre Sentinel and threw in my Gaius, because he might have made the run a little faster, but I already had the Sepulchre built with the War Master, so I didn't really want to build up my Gaius, and I don't have a Masteries done at all, so I just stuck with what I have. But there's so many champions in here that are really good. There's a lot better champions than there were back then when Knight Revenant was an absolute monster of a faction to take down, especially before all the nerfs that faction wars got. But yeah, there's plenty of options here, especially the Tomb Lord. There's also, I mean, even Narma, the Versal, there's plenty of great champions here that'll get the job done and help out. But as far as like epic champions, if you don't have any of the ones that I have, then Doom Priest is another really good one that'll help you sustain and stay alive and be healthy. And there's also Gold Reaper, who's also pretty decent as well. Faceless is a huge one. He does massive damage, takes down the boss pretty quickly. But there are plenty of options here, even the Renegade, the Coffin Smasher with the attack down. There's plenty of options here. But going over to the run now. Alright, so when it comes to this faction, I didn't really do any presets or anything like that. I pretty much manualed everything here. But again, the champions that I'm using here are Drang, Miscreated Monster, Rector Drath, Sepulchre Sentinel, and Skullcrown. So for this first fight, I pretty much just want to try to control the Martyrs, because they're going to be providing a lot of CC, like Provoke, Counterattack, which is really brutal as well. So I want to try to stun them if I can, or try to get them down as quickly as possible. But yeah, as you can see here, we landed a lot of stuns on everybody. We are landing all our HP burns, of course, with no accuracy because he can't be resisted. And slowly but surely, they're all going to be taken down. So around here, I realized that the fight is pretty much over, and I didn't want to use all my other abilities, and I just wanted to A1 everything if I could. So I try to stay away from A2 and A3 on my other champions so I can have it ready for the next fight. Now this part is going to be the toughest part of this faction in my opinion, because controlling these Valkyries can be brutal, and that guy's also going to be providing block damage, so it's pretty rough. So I want to make sure I can try to control the Valkyries, and if I can, I want to get them down as soon as possible. So right here we have everybody stunned. This is like the perfect case scenario, and now I can just pretty much just try to take them down as fast as I can. But I'm targeting the other champion that's awake, because I don't want his block damage to go off, because that's really bad too. And every time there's another champion CC'd, I pretty much just change to switch to someone else that's awake, so I can try to down them as quickly as possible. Because the champions that are stunned, I can just take them down later. They're not really much of a priority just yet. So perfect here, we got them stunned again. And pretty much from here is just smooth sailing. I want to keep controlling the Valkyries as much as possible. Don't let their counterattacks go off, because it does a lot of damage, and counterattack is just really annoying. And now I realize the fight is almost over once again. So I pretty much just A1 as much as possible while I get all my cooldowns back ready for the boss fight. So for this fight, it'll be ideal if you can try to get the ads down as soon as possible. The boss won't be able to revive them at all because he doesn't have those kind of abilities. But the first ad is going to be providing a provoke debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, which can be really annoying. And for the second one, he can provide leech debuff on all enemies. So that's going to be a bad thing for us because the boss would be able to heal himself. So there are some crucial things you want to keep in mind when you're fighting this boss, but let's go over his abilities real quick. So for the A1, attacks all enemies, has a 25% chance to place fear debuff for 1 turn. This chance is increased by 15% per each buff placed on this champion. For the A2, attacks all enemies, steal all buffs from each enemy, then transfers all debuffs from this champion to a random enemy. Then applies a debuff spread effect, taking all debuffs from that enemy and places it on everyone. So one thing to keep in mind is he's always going to be doing his A2 at the start of the fight. So before he gets to his turn, try not to land any debuffs on him if possible. If it does land, it's not the end of the world, but you definitely do not want to use ally protection here with your miscreated monster, because if you do and the boss steals it, that means every time you attack the boss, you're gonna be hitting your miscreated monster because the ally protection that he placed on your team is now on the boss instead. So I would highly recommend not using ally protection here before he gets to this ability, and you're safe to use it right afterward, but you still want to time it as much as possible. But after he uses this ability, you're able to place all your debuffs freely, and just make sure you time yourself with when his ability is about to come back up, because when there's 1 turn remaining before that, he's going to use it again. And the last thing to keep in mind is his A3 exchanges remaining HP levels with a target enemy. So what happens here is when he gets low enough to a certain point, he's going to swap HP with whoever has the highest HP on your team. So what this means is you're going to have to kill this boss twice essentially. Unless that first time around he gets really low and you're able to burst him down as quickly as possible. But if not, he's going to swap HP levels with the highest HP level champion you have. And then basically you're going to have to fight the boss all over again and try to beat him within those 12 turns, because he's going to get this back eventually and you want to make sure you down him before that happens. Otherwise, he's going to swap HP again, which does happen in my fight here, which was really unfortunate. But you'll see later that I have another strategy where I don't use any healing abilities by the time he gets back around to this ability, and he swaps HP with another champion of mine who is not fully healthy, so that gives me a little bit of an advantage that time around to try to down him as quickly as possible, but it still comes down to the wire. So make sure to keep that in mind. So I'm just going to let the rest of this video play out. Hope you guys enjoy, and thank you so much for all the love and support, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.